Breaking these nine mental currents. Breaking these nine mental currents will make you evolve in life in 2026. That sounds bold. But before you think about the year ahead, you need to ask something far more uncomfortable. Are you actually moving forward, or are you being carried? Most people believe they are choosing their direction. They set intentions, they plan, they promise themselves that this year will be different. Yet, quietly beneath those promises, there are currents already pulling. Invisible patterns of thought, repeated reactions, inherited beliefs, unexamined fears. These currents do not shout. They guide silently. And over time, they determine where you end up. You think you are steering your life. But what if most of your decisions are shaped by mental inertia? What if your hesitation, your anxiety, your self-doubt, your attachment to certain outcomes are not conscious choices, but habits of perception running on autopilot? The truth is uncomfortable. Stagnation is rarely caused by lack of opportunity. It is caused by patterns of thinking that feel normal. These mental currents are subtle, waiting for perfect clarity before acting, imagining worst-case scenarios and calling it preparation, treating emotions as final verdicts, fighting reality when it refuses to obey your expectations, seeking reassurance before moving, comparing your pace to others and calling it self-awareness. None of these feel destructive in the moment. They feel reasonable, logical, even responsible. But currents do not need to feel dramatic to redirect a ship. They only need to be persistent. And if you never question them, they will quietly shape your identity, your confidence, and your future. Year after year. Stoicism does not promise motivation. It offers something more demanding. It demands that you examine the source of your reactions, that you separate what you control from what you do not, that you accept what must be faced and redirect your energy toward what can be shaped. Evolution is not about becoming someone else. It is about interrupting the mental forces that keep you the same. 2026 will not change you by itself. Time does nothing without disciplined perception. The real question is this: will you continue drifting with the currents you have never challenged, or will you learn to recognize and break them? Now we begin by identifying the first current that feels harmless, but quietly delays growth. The current of passive anticipation. One of the most deceptive mental currents is the habit of waiting for clarity, waiting for confidence, waiting for the right mood, the right moment, the right alignment of circumstances. It feels responsible. It feels thoughtful. But often it is simply passive anticipation disguised as prudence. You tell yourself you are preparing. You are thinking things through. You are making sure you are ready. Yet weeks pass, months pass, sometimes years pass, and what you call preparation is actually hesitation. The mind convinces you that action must follow certainty, but certainty rarely arrives before movement. It is movement that produces clarity. This current is subtle because it does not look like fear. It looks like patience. It looks like intelligence. But beneath it is a quiet belief: I cannot move until I feel fully prepared. And that belief keeps you anchored in the same place. You wait for internal stability before acting, not realizing that stability is often built through action itself. The Stoics understood this well. They did not wait for perfect emotional conditions to act in accordance with reason. They acted because it was within their control to act. Whether the outcome was favorable or not was secondary. What mattered was alignment between intention and behavior. Clarity came from engagement with reality, not from endless contemplation of it. Passive anticipation drains momentum. It feeds doubt. The longer you delay, the more intimidating the action becomes. The mind begins to exaggerate the difficulty, to inflate the risks, to magnify uncertainty. And what could have been a simple step becomes a psychological mountain. Ask yourself honestly, how many decisions are you postponing under the excuse of needing more clarity? How many steps could have been taken already, even imperfectly? Evolution does not reward those who wait for ideal conditions. It rewards those who move despite incomplete information. Breaking this current requires a shift in perspective. You do not need absolute certainty to begin. You need sufficient direction. The dichotomy of control applies here directly. You control the action. You do not control every variable surrounding it. If you wait to control everything, you will never start. Clarity is not a prerequisite, it is a byproduct. The path becomes visible as you walk it, and if you continue waiting for the fog to disappear entirely before taking a step, you will remain standing in the same place while time moves forward without you. The current of catastrophic projection. Another current that quietly redirects your life is the habit of living in imagined futures. Not realistic planning, but catastrophic projection. You rehearse what could go wrong. You anticipate rejection before it happens. You mentally experience failure before taking action, and you call it preparation. The mind is powerful. It can simulate entire scenarios in seconds. But when this ability is misused, it becomes a generator of fear. You begin reacting emotionally to events that do not exist. Your body feels tension, your focus narrows, your motivation weakens. Yet nothing has actually happened. This current feels intelligent because it disguises itself as caution. You tell yourself you are thinking ahead, considering risks, being responsible. But there is a difference between assessing possibilities and dwelling on worst-case narratives. One sharpens judgment, the other drains courage. The Stoics recognize that the future is uncertain and outside full control. What they did not do was surrender the present to imagined disasters. They understood that anxiety often comes from attaching certainty to uncertainty. You treat a possible outcome as inevitable. You suffer twice, once in imagination and again, if it ever truly occurs. Catastrophic projection steals attention from what you can do now. Instead of acting within your sphere of control, you become entangled in outcomes that have not unfolded. The dichotomy of control becomes blurred. You attempt to solve emotional reactions to hypothetical scenarios. Your energy disperses. Consider how many opportunities were delayed because of a future you created in your mind, a conversation avoided, a project postponed, a decision deferred, not because of reality, but because of anticipation. Breaking this current begins with a question: is this happening now, or am I constructing it? If it is not happening now, then your task is simple. Return to the present action within your control. The future will arrive on its own terms. Your responsibility exists only in how you respond when it does. Anxiety rehearses disasters. Discipline prepares action. One keeps you mentally trapped in what might be. The other keeps you grounded in what can be done. If you continue feeding imagined catastrophes, your life direction will bend around fears that never materialize. If you interrupt this current, you reclaim your energy for movement instead of mental simulation. The current of emotional justification. One of the most persuasive mental currents is the belief that how you feel is proof of what is true. If you feel discouraged, you assume the situation is hopeless. If you feel insecure, you conclude you are inadequate. If you feel anxious, you treat the future as dangerous. The emotion becomes evidence, and once it becomes evidence, it governs your decisions. This current is powerful because emotions feel immediate and convincing. They arrive with intensity. They influence the body. They demand response. And without reflection, they quietly become authority. You begin to act not from examined thought, but from internal weather. The Stoics never denied emotion. They examined it. They understood that emotion is a reaction to interpretation, not a verdict from reality itself. When you treat emotion as final truth, you surrender your reason. You allow temporary states to define permanent conclusions. And over time, your identity begins to mirror your most frequent emotional patterns. Consider how often you have avoided action because you did not feel ready, or abandoned progress because you felt doubtful, or justified inaction because you felt overwhelmed. In each case, the emotion was real, but was it reliable? Did it represent objective reality, or an interpretation shaped by fear, fatigue, or expectation? Emotional justification prevents evolution because it keeps you reactive. Instead of asking what is reasonable, you ask what feels comfortable. Instead of asking what aligns with your principles, you ask what reduces discomfort immediately. That subtle shift redirects your life toward ease, not growth. Breaking this current requires discipline. The next time a strong emotion appears, pause. Name it. Observe it. Then ask a sharper question. What interpretation produced this feeling? And is that interpretation accurate? This simple inquiry separates sensation from judgment. The dichotomy of control applies here again. You cannot prevent emotions from arising, but you can choose how much authority you grant them. You can experience anxiety without concluding failure. You can feel fear without abandoning action. You can feel doubt without redefining your capability. If you continue to treat emotion as truth, your direction will fluctuate with every internal shift. If you learn to treat emotion as information, your direction becomes steadier. The current of outcome attachment. There is a mental current that feels like ambition, but often becomes a trap. It is the attachment to specific outcomes. You tell yourself that evolution depends on achieving a particular result, a certain income, a certain recognition, a certain milestone, and without realizing it, you tie your sense of progress to variables you do not fully control. This current is dangerous because it shifts your focus away from action and toward results. You begin measuring your worth by what happens after you act, not by the integrity of the action itself. If the outcome aligns with your expectation, you feel validated. If it does not, you question yourself. Your stability becomes dependent on external confirmation. The Stoics offered a precise correction for this. They separated effort from outcome. Action belongs to you. Results do not. You control preparation, discipline, persistence, judgment. You do not control how others respond, how markets move, how circumstances align. When you attach your growth to outcomes, you bind your peace to uncertainty. Outcome attachment creates hesitation. You fear starting because you fear failing. You delay moving because you cannot guarantee success. The mind begins calculating risks obsessively. It becomes less concerned with doing what is right and more concerned with ensuring the result. And when the result cannot be guaranteed, action weakens. Evolution does not require perfect outcomes. It requires consistent alignment with what is within your control. When you shift focus from results to conduct, something stabilizes. You begin asking better questions. Did I act with discipline? Did I follow reason? Did I execute what I could execute? These questions produce progress regardless of external feedback. Breaking this current means redefining success. Success becomes the quality of your effort, not the certainty of your reward. It becomes the courage to act even when outcomes remain uncertain. This perspective does not eliminate ambition. It refines it. It anchors ambition in discipline rather than in hope. If you continue to anchor your growth in results, your direction will fluctuate with every success and setback. If you anchor it in conduct, your progress becomes steady. The current of external referencing. There is a current that rarely announces itself openly. It works quietly in the background, shaping how you measure progress, worth, and identity. It is the habit of external referencing, looking outward to determine how well you are doing, comparing timelines, comparing recognition, comparing pace, and without noticing, outsourcing your sense of direction to the perception of others. At first, comparison seems harmless. It can even feel motivating. You see someone advancing and you push yourself harder. But over time, this habit begins to distort your internal compass. Instead of asking whether your actions align with your values, you ask whether they look impressive. Instead of evaluating your discipline, you evaluate your visibility. The Stoics understood that identity built on perception is unstable. Opinion is external, reputation is external, recognition is external. When your sense of evolution depends on these variables, your peace becomes fragile. You celebrate when approval arrives, you destabilize when it does not. Your trajectory bends toward validation rather than toward integrity. External referencing also creates unnecessary pressure. You begin measuring your Chapter 1 against someone else's Chapter 10. You interpret someone else's success as your delay. You assume that progress must follow a uniform timeline. This thinking erodes patience and clouds judgment. You are no longer navigating by principle, you are navigating by comparison. Breaking this current requires a recalibration of reference points. Instead of asking how you appear, ask whether you are consistent. Instead of asking whether you are ahead of others, ask whether you are ahead of your previous self. The dichotomy of control becomes critical here. You do not control how others advance. You control your effort, your discipline, your refinement. When your reference becomes internal alignment rather than external approval, your growth stabilizes. You move because it is rational to move. You improve because it is within your authority to improve. The noise of comparison loses its influence. If you continue to reference yourself through others, your identity will remain unstable. If you anchor your reference in your own conduct, your evolution becomes self-directed. The current of resistance to reality. There is a mental current that feels like strength, but often becomes exhaustion. It is the habit of resisting reality when it does not match your expectations. You replay what should have happened. You argue internally with what already occurred. You fight circumstances that are no longer negotiable. And in doing so, you drain energy that could have been redirected. Resistance disguises itself as determination. You tell yourself you refuse to accept less than what you imagined. You convince yourself that rejecting reality is a form of ambition. But there is a difference between striving for improvement and denying facts. When the mind refuses to acknowledge what is, it remains locked in conflict, and conflict with reality never ends in victory. The Stoics practiced a form of acceptance that was not passive, but strategic. They understood that events unfold beyond complete control. Loss happens, delays happen, plans collapse, expectations fail. The question is not whether reality will comply with your preferences. The question is how you will respond once it does not. When you resist facts, you multiply suffering. The event happens once. Your rejection of it keeps it alive. You replay conversations. You reimagine outcomes. You revisit mistakes. Meanwhile, time continues moving forward. Resistance keeps you mentally anchored to what cannot be undone. Acceptance does not mean liking what happened. It means recognizing that it happened. It means freeing cognitive space to decide your next action. When you stop fighting the existence of a situation, you regain clarity about how to adapt. This shift is powerful. Energy previously spent in frustration becomes available for adjustment. Breaking this current requires humility, not humiliation, but humility before reality. You do not control every outcome. You control your conduct within outcomes. The dichotomy of control reappears here as a compass. Accept what is outside your sphere. Redirect effort toward what remains inside it. If you continue resisting reality, evolution slows. You waste strength arguing with facts. If you accept reality as it stands and act within it, growth resumes. The current of reactive living. There is a current that quietly consumes agency, living in reaction mode, responding to messages as they arrive, adjusting plans based on others' urgency, letting external demands dictate the rhythm of your day. You wake up with intention, but by midday you are navigating stimuli instead of steering direction. Reactive living feels productive because you are always doing something, answering, solving, responding. Yet activity is not the same as direction. When your actions are primarily responses to external triggers, your life becomes a sequence of interruptions. You are busy but not necessarily aligned. The Stoics placed enormous emphasis on intentional conduct. They did not deny that events require response, but they insisted that response must be chosen, not automatic. When you live reactively, you surrender initiative. You become shaped by circumstances instead of shaping your posture within them. This current weakens evolution because it fragments attention. Every notification becomes priority. Every request feels urgent. Your mental bandwidth disperses. At the end of the day, you may feel exhausted without having advanced meaningfully in any direction you consciously chose. Breaking this current requires reclaiming initiation. Acting before reacting. Deciding what matters before external stimuli demand response. This does not mean ignoring responsibilities. It means placing deliberate action at the center and fitting responses around it, not the other way around. Ask yourself a precise question. How much of my day is directed by my values, and how much is dictated by immediate inputs? The answer reveals the degree of control you maintain over your own trajectory. The dichotomy of control applies again. You cannot stop the world from presenting demands, But you can control how quickly and how deeply you allow them to redirect your focus. When you strengthen initiative, your life regains coherence. Actions align with intention rather than impulse. If you remain reactive, you will continue drifting along the priorities of others. If you learn to initiate, your direction becomes deliberate. The current of mental overexposure. There is a current that disguises itself as preparation, but often becomes paralysis. It is the habit of constant mental consumption. More information, more analysis, more opinions, more strategies. You tell yourself you are learning, preparing, gathering insight. Yet the more you absorb, the less decisive you become. Mental overexposure creates the illusion of progress. You watch, read, compare, evaluate. But execution is postponed. The mind becomes saturated with possibilities, and clarity dissolves under excess. Instead of strengthening conviction, you accumulate contradictions. Instead of sharpening direction, you multiply alternatives. The Stoics valued knowledge, but they warned against intellectual excess without application. Wisdom is not accumulation, it is digestion. When you consume without practicing, you inflate thought and weaken action. Your mind becomes crowded, and in a crowded mind, decisive movement is difficult. This current is dangerous because it feels productive. You are not idle, you are engaged. But engagement is not execution. Information without implementation becomes mental noise, and noise disrupts internal authority. Consider how often you postpone action because you believe you need just a little more clarity, another perspective, another tool, another confirmation. Yet often the missing element is not knowledge, it is commitment, the willingness to act with what you already understand. Breaking this current requires discipline in exposure, not rejecting learning, but limiting it, learning with intention, applying before accumulating more, protecting cognitive space so that your own reasoning can function without constant external interference. The dichotomy of control applies even here. You cannot control the endless availability of information, but you control what you allow into your mental environment and how long you remain there. When you regulate exposure, your thinking sharpens, your decisions become simpler. If you continue feeding mental excess, your evolution will stall in contemplation. If you reduce noise and prioritize application, momentum returns. The current of inconsistent self-authority. The final current is not dramatic. It does not create panic or obvious chaos. It is quieter than that. It is the habit of breaking promises to yourself, deciding one thing in clarity and abandoning it in discomfort, committing in confidence and withdrawing in doubt. Over time, this pattern weakens something fundamental, your trust in your own authority. Every time you tell yourself you will act and do not, something shifts internally, not loudly, not visibly, but subtly. Your mind begins to treat your intentions as negotiable. Discipline becomes optional, standards become flexible, and the voice that once guided you with certainty becomes softer. This current is dangerous because it erodes evolution from within. You can understand every Stoic principle. You can identify every mental pattern. But if your actions are inconsistent, progress dissolves. The mind learns from repetition. If you repeatedly override your own commitments, your identity adapts accordingly. The Stoics valued integrity above intensity. They did not seek bursts of motivation. They sought consistency in conduct. Evolution is not built on grand declarations. It is built on repeated alignment between what you say matters and what you actually do. Inconsistent self-authority creates hesitation. You doubt your own follow-through. You delay action because past inaction lingers in memory. You question whether you will sustain effort, and that doubt becomes self-fulfilling. Breaking this current requires a return to discipline at the smallest scale. Keep smaller promises, execute simpler commitments, rebuild credibility with yourself gradually. When your mind observes that your word leads to action, stability returns. Confidence becomes grounded, not imagined. The dichotomy of control becomes deeply personal here. You cannot control outcomes, but you fully control whether you honor your own decisions. This is where evolution becomes tangible, not in external shifts, but in internal reliability. If you continue undermining your own authority, no external opportunity will change your trajectory. If you restore consistency between intention and behavior, growth becomes inevitable. Now, everything converges. The still point. At this point, something should feel clearer, not louder, not dramatic, clearer. The currents were never outside you. They were patterns of perception, reaction, anticipation, attachment, comparison, resistance, distraction, and inconsistency. None of them were catastrophic on their own, but together they shaped direction. Breaking these currents is not about becoming someone entirely new. It is about interrupting the mental drift that has quietly been guiding you. Evolution is not reinvention. It is redirection. A steady reorientation of attention toward what you control and away from what you do not. 2026 will not transform you simply because it arrives. Time does not grant discipline. Circumstances will not align perfectly. Uncertainty will not disappear. The world will remain unpredictable. The difference will not be in the external environment. It will be in your internal navigation. When passive anticipation is replaced by action, movement begins. When catastrophic projection is replaced by present focus, anxiety weakens. When emotional justification is replaced by reason, stability increases. When outcome attachment loosens, execution strengthens. When comparison fades, identity stabilizes. When resistance gives way to acceptance, energy returns. When reaction becomes initiation, direction clarifies. When noise is reduced, thought sharpens. When promises are kept, self-trust rebuilds. This is not motivational language. It is structural reality. The mind becomes navigational instead of reactive. That is the shift. Not dramatic transformation, not overnight reinvention, but cognitive sovereignty. You cannot control the wind. You cannot control the sea, but you can control how you steer. The currents still exist. They always will. The difference is awareness. And once awareness becomes discipline, drift becomes choice. Evolution is quiet. It does not announce itself. It appears in consistency, in clarity, in the calm of someone who understands where control begins and ends. The year ahead will test the same patterns it always has. The question is no longer whether currents exist. The question is whether you will continue to let them carry you. That decision is yours.